Let me see if I'm live. I think it is, but I'm not sure. I can't really tell. Let's see. Let's see. I cannot tell. Oh, go live. Yes. This. Am I live? I can't tell. Am I live? I think. Dashboard. Content. I cannot tell. One minute. Uh, so what the fuck can let's see. Share clipboard. Oops. Um, let's see. Am I live? Am I live? I need to see. I probably have to turn up my mic. Let's see if this is better. No, probably too loud. Let's see. Let's see if this is better. No, probably too loud. Let's see. 16, 16, 16, test, 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 16, 16, 16, 16. I'm checking on my phone. If this is better. No, probably too loud. Let's see. 16, 16, 16, test, 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 test. All right, that should be fine. 16, 16. So, this stream is technically just, I'm going to explain the team that I used in the video, this video, and I'm also going to explain why I did what I did, I guess, but yeah. This is just, I don't know if I'll keep doing this, but I just wanted to, I thought about doing this since most of you guys don't really know much about Pokemon, and I guess watching this might help you learn if you actually do want to, but if not, it's just fun, I guess, just to do it. But I do go into detail in the descriptions about each member of the team. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but I guess I can just give you like a brief rundown on this. Um, so basically, Lunala is a ghost type, and but most of the time you want to be able to terrestrialize into the fairy type. But if you're a ghost type, you can't be affected by fake out or any moves secondary effects if you have the covert cloak item. So sometimes people feel safe to like use fake out, like with Incineroar, Rillaboom, or any Pokemon with fake out. So it's just giving you more insurance to not be able to be affected by fake out or any secondary effects, obviously. You obviously have Moongeist Beam, signature moves, super strong, ignores abilities. Moonblast, you have Terra Fairy pairing with it to boost the power of Moonblast. Trick Room just to flip the speeds if they're faster than you. Protect just to obviously protect. Uh, I mean, it's not that bulky, but it has some bulk, so. And I'm pretty sure it's able to outspeed some Miraidon after an Icy Wind from further main. But Koraidon literally has no bulk, it's just here to go fully offensive. Um, Literally just there to blow it. I mean, it's probably gonna kill itself in the process, but yeah, he's just there to be strong. Terra Fire to boost fire type moves. Literally sets up the sun, so Flare Blitz, huge attack. Life Orb to boost its damage even more. Literally no bulk at all, just I guess 4 HP, but that doesn't really matter because it's not gonna really be doing much. But you want to outspeed everything because Miraidon is a really big threat. So another Koraidon, I just wanted to go Jolly instead of Adamant. I'm already boosting my damage with the Life Orb anyway, and you'll be speed tying with other Pokemon, so it's just better to be faster. You can boost your speed with Flame Charge. If you get at least one speed boost, you'll be able to outspeed Shadow Rider Calyrex, the fastest Pokemon in the one of the fastest Pokemon in the format. Close combat, it lowers your defenses, but at least you do huge damage no matter what. It doesn't matter if the sun is up or not. Fluttermane is really good because you get a speed boost if Koraidon sets up the sun. Moonblast, Terra Fairy just to boost the damage of Terra Fairy, and I guess drop the weakness to Ghost, but it doesn't really matter since you don't have any bulk on it. You have Focus Sash just to survive on 1 health as long as you're on full health. Icy Wind to drop the speed of Miraidon or Koraidons, or Shadow Rider Calyrex, any Pokemon that are faster than you, so that way your Koraidon can outspeed them without having to set up the Flame Charge. Taunt to stop a Pokemon like Amoonguss from putting you to sleep, or anything like Trick Room, unwanted stuff like that. Incineroar is just generally bulky. It's just a classic Incineroar safety goggles to ignore any powder moves or like Amoonguss or Sleep, anything like that. Still be able to switch it on like Sleep, Intimidate just to obviously lower the attack stat of them. Ghost type to be able to not be affected by Fake Out or any fighting type moves since you're super effective weak into it. Fake Out to stop them. Flare Blitz. I mean, you're getting a damage boost from the Sun that Koraidon sets up anyway, so it's really good. Knockoff just to be able to threaten knockoff into Shadow Riders or any other ghost types. Also to just be able to take off items from other Pokemon. Parting Shot to like lower their attack and special attack, so that we do less damage to your team. And just to reposition, um, yeah, it's Incineroar as slow as possible because let's just say an Ice Rider is setting up Trick Room, you'll be able to knock him off, and then Parting Shot after, even if they have a clear amulet. So it's pretty good. Among Us is here with the Mental Herb, so just in case it gets taunted by any Flutter Mane or anything with Taunt, Terra Water, just to be not as, so you don't take super effective damage from fire type moves, Spore to put opponents to sleep, Pollen Puff to heal your Pokemon, Rage Powder to redirect attacks, Protect. Before I used to have the Assault Vest boost, the Assault Vest, Raging Bolt, but I didn't really like it too much. It felt too passive, and this one feels really strong, especially with Terra Fairy to ignore Dragon type moves. Thunderclap for priority, Thunderbolt just to do good damage, Dragon Pulse obviously. Boost Energy is here, even though you will have Sun from Koraidon. Sometimes uh you won't have the opportunity to bring Koraidon into the field because of other threats. So it's good to have Boost Energy to be able to get your special attack boost regardless. But I guess that's just a quick rundown of the team, but I guess we can get started. Let's see. So right here they have, oof, the quality. They have Shadow Rider, Terapagos, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Urshifu, Grimmsnarl. Obviously, this can make them more bulky. The Goons, this, two legendaries. I guess they just try to keep you from terrestrializing by having Terrapagos and this, since you can't really resist anything with the. It's hard to resist ghost type moves with from the Shadow Rider. Yo, the quality's back. I'm just thinking about what to pick into them. All right, our first opponent, Bugatti. They lead with Shadow Rider and Water Urshifu. Obviously, we can fake them out with Incineroar and we're lowering their attack. We're also threatening knockoff into the Shadow Rider for super effective damage. But they're also threatening a knockout into the Lunala since we're 4 times super weak to any ghost type moves like the Astral Barrage. But obviously, the Incineroar would resist the move since he's a dark type. But here, it's probably safe to Terra Fairy and maybe set up a Trick Room just to have the speed on our side and fake out the Urshifu just so it doesn't attack into us. But as you can see, Terra Fairy, Trick Room, fake out the Urshifu is just pretty safe in general. That way you're not weak to you lose your 4 times super weakness, 4 times weakness to ghost type moves, and you take less damage. But let's see what our opponent does in response to what we can do. You can tell they're not going to terrestrialize because we're probably slower than both of their Pokemon. So our Terra goes first, so they're probably not going to terrestrialize. Yep. Fake out the Urshifu so it doesn't move, it flinches. And Astral Brawl just gets launched into us, but we're going to take not too much damage. And with that, we set up the Trick Room, so now the dimensions are twisted and we're faster than them. Here we're threatening to... We could either launch a Moongeist Beam into the Calyrex for super effective, 4 times super effective damage, or we can launch a Moonblast into the Urshifu, so it doesn't have, since it's weak to Fairy type moves. We could also just Parting Shot with the Incineroar, but we're also threatening a knockoff into the Calyrex, or a knockoff into the Urshifu just to guarantee we do more damage. But generally, we won't be attacking into the Urshifu that much with Incineroar since it's not really threatening too much. But here's the Moon Blast into the Urshifu and the knockoff into the Calyrex just in case, because they're probably gonna protect with the Calyrex or switch it out. That's why I didn't launch an attack with it with the Lunala. But yeah, they switch out, they launch an Incineroar. I guess they're gonna intimidate us anyway. But we're gonna knock off whatever item the Incineroar is holding and hopefully hit the Urshifu with super effective damage, hopefully getting a knockout. We do take a little bit of chip from the Rocky Helmet, but now it's gone, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. And Moonblast should knock out the Urshifu, unless it's some crazy ass Urshifu, but nah, it's dead. With the critical hit, it probably didn't matter. We had the Terra boost. Shout out Alan. There's Terrapagos. I mean, we technically are super effective weakened to the Terrapagos now since we did Terrestrialize. We're gonna launch both attacks into the Terrapagos, and we don't really have to be scared of getting faked out by the Incineroar since we do have the Cobra Cloak item, so we don't have to worry about it. But we will have to try to find out what item the Terapagos has. You do fake out with the Incineroar into our Incineroar, which is actually pretty interesting. You would think they would want to fake out the Lunala, but they didn't. Now we're going to take heavy damage with Lunala and Incineroar, but we're in a good position so far. We could also fish for special attack drops with the Terapagos, but we didn't get any, and they're the leftovers items, so they're going to be getting health gradually throughout the match. We have 2 turns of Trick Room, so it's safe to... We could probably protect since we have Koraidon. We should have Koraidon in the back. And we can parting shot the Terapagos because the dimensions are twisted. So we would definitely be the slowest, probably. Well, I don't know how fast their Incineroar is. But with this, we should be good. Obviously it fails since they protected. I could have launched the parting shot into the opposing Incineroar, but I didn't. I feel like it's just safer to launch it into the Terapagos, but I guess they're just getting their healing out anyway, so I don't regret the play I made. There's one more turn of Trick Room, so we could switch out, or we could just let the Lunala die. But here we're switching in Amoonguss. Since they're probably not launching any fire type moves here into this slot, I'm just gonna go with the double swap. Launching Koraidon into the last turn of Trick Room. That way we're just gonna take a little bit of damage, and after that, we'll be able to go for full offense anyway. They do parting shot the Koraidon, which is actually bad since we do less damage, but I guess we'll see. They do launch in the Calyrex, which is the fastest Pokemon on the field, so it's actually pretty scary. They launch a Terra Starstorm, hitting both of us. We would be able to take another one, but it's kind of unsafe. But here I'm going to try to protect Koraidon and launch Spore into the Calyrex to put it to sleep. But they could read that and just protect their Calyrex since they know they're faster. And they know we wouldn't want to take any super effective damage. But they do switch out, they're probably switching into Incineroar to lower attack even more. But we do put the Incineroar to sleep now, so that's pretty good. But now we're dealing not much damage with the Koraidon now. They protect with the Terapagos. And right now, it doesn't seem good right now since we are severely weakened. I mean, we have -2 on the Koraidon, so it would be the smartest decision to switch it out, but I don't think I do. I'm over here thinking about getting the speed boost on the Koraidon just to outspeed the Calyrex, but I don't think that should be my priority. My priority should be switching on Koraidon, but I guess I don't realize that before, because now even if I do outspeed the Calyrex, I'm not going to be dealing much damage anyway, so what's the point? And since I have Life Orb, I'm not gonna be able to take it. I'm not gonna be able to hit them many more times. And the Terrapigo survives, sadly. But if I launch another attack with the Koraidon, I will die because of the Life Orb C. Now I'm only on 2 health. And Incineroar wakes up and launches their Flare Blitz into the Amoonguss. There was no way the Amoonguss was going to be able to survive there because they did have the Sun Boost and plus it was a super effective damage. But here, sadly, it does look like we lose because we barely have any health on us. And the only Pokemon that can outspeed the Calyrex in the back is the Koraidon, and he's already on. He only has 2 health. And plus, he's intimidated by 2, so it's bad. I'm thinking about it, but it's not. It's probably not possible. Hmm. The only way to win would probably be to launch an attack with the Koraidon to sacrifice the Koraidon and probably try to set up Trick Room and hopefully the Terapagos doesn't wake up. But I don't think I see the play in the past. I'm thinking too much about protecting the Koraidon, keeping it safe for it to outspeed the Calyrex, but it doesn't matter if it outspeeds the Calyrex because it's not going to kill it anyway. Yeah, Trick Room was probably the best option in killing the Incineroar with close combat. But I wonder if it would survive from that range. Uh, yeah, and with Lunala dead, it's just over. And the sun is gone, so we're dealing even less damage with the Koraidon. And since we're slow Incineroar, they probably outspeed us with theirs anyway and just knock us out. Yeah, -2 attack. It's not gonna be dealing much damage. And maybe if we were to get a crit and they're not Focus Sash. But either way, the Incineroar would probably beat us in the long run because we're gonna knock ourselves out and they can probably just beat our Incineroar with theirs. Yeah, and they read us to fake out the Incineroar, and they keep their Calyrex safe. I'm probably gonna go for the same thing anyway, so I can just fast forward a little bit. Incineroar isn't gonna be able to do much anyway, so let's see how it plays out. As you can see, literally does no damage, no sun, -2, and he's dead now. And Incineroar should just get knocked out. Even if he does resist Astral Barrage, it's just over for him. He has no health. Yeah, and we lose to Bugatti. But now we're going against Sir Smokey. Here you can tell they generally have a pretty slow team because the only Pokemon that are generally fast are the Miraidon, and I guess the Blood Moon Ursaluna can also be quite fast, but other than that, the Pokemon are pretty slow. He's a Trick Room Pokemon. Garganacl is not known for its speed. This one's just a supportive Trick Room Pokemon, and Porygon 2 is pretty slow too. I guess here I'm thinking if I should bring the Amoonga since they are a Trick Room team, so we able to put them to sleep. So the idea is to be able to send in Koraidon to give the speed boost to Fluttermane by setting up the sun and having Incineroar just to be able to bring in Incineroar to try to intimidate the Ice Rider Calyrex, or be able to just take the hits since he's a fire type and he won't take much from ice type moves. But we do want to try to outspeed the Miraidon at all costs. I guess we can skip forward and see what happens. You see the leads. Alright. So they send in their Porygon and their Miraidon. Right here we do have kind of like a mind game because if they're Terra Fairy, they will be able to take the close combat. And as you can see, they're not a normal Miraidon. They are a Electric Seed, so they do get a defense boost by the Electric Terrain that they do set up. So here it's not guaranteed that I will be able to knock out with the close combat because of that. But since thankfully the Porygon 2 doesn't get a special attack boost because of Koraidon in front of it, but we can probably just Icy Wind and close combat the Miraidon just to see what it does, or we can just double protect, but that risks them setting up the Trick Room. But also the Porygon 2 isn't really threatening much into us since it's not really going to be having any super effective damage into our Pokemon. The only thing that it could have would be Ice Beam to threaten the Koraidon, but we do have Terra Fire, so we wouldn't take much damage from that anyway. But we do Terra Fire, and we're probably going to launch a close combat into the Miraidon, or Flare Blitz. Looks like I ran out of time. But personally, I probably would have Terra Fired and close combated the Miraidon and taunted the Porygon, but I guess here it doesn't hurt that we did get a timeout since we did get the special attack drop into the Porygon, so it's threatening even less into us. But we do launch a Flare Blitz into Miraidon. If it was a close combat, by that damage I think we would have knocked out, but it's hard to tell because of the defense boost from the Grassy Seed. But here they launch an Electro Drift into the Fluttermane, but we are safe because of the Focus Sash, and either way they didn't even get us to Focus Sash since we aren't at 1 health. But the taunt play would have been perfect since we would have stopped them from setting up Trick Room. But here I'm thinking about switching to Incineroar since we would be the fastest thing on the field. Or I could just play risky and launch an attack with Koraidon, or protect just to get rid of some Trick Room turns since we do have to get through 5 turns of that. Alternatively, you could just protect and launch in the Incineroar to take the attacks. But they do switch out their Miraidon, so they do lose a defense boost. So they're technically Miraidon with no item at all. But here's in Ursaluna. I guess they do have a slow Ursaluna because they do want it in Trick Room, so it's probably not a fast one. Their only fast Pokemon is Miraidon. But here we launch an Incineroar because it won't take much damage from any moves from Porygon. And either way they switched in their Miraidon, but Miraidon I guess could have. It probably would have launched attack into Koraidon instead of Fluttermane since Fluttermane could be taken care of by that Ice Beam. So we were pretty safe for the most part. But here, since I do have an active Fake Out, I could launch Close Combat into either of them. And the bigger threat is the Ursaluna, so I probably want to kill the Ursaluna and just knock it out instantly. So that way, they're not. It's the only Pokemon on their side threatening any heavy damage, and Porygon isn't since it didn't get a special attack boost, and it also got special attack lowered by the Fluttermane. They do launch a Tri Attack. They do have some odds of freezing, paralyzing. But here, we just cleanly knock out the Ursaluna since we do have a super effective attack into it. They didn't respect the fake out, and that's what happened. So far, we're managing the trick room turns pretty well. But here's Calyrax, their main sweeper. I mean, we have two fire types, so they shouldn't be dealing too much damage into us anyway. But I guess they could have Terra Water or other terrestrializations to not take super effective damage the from any fire type moves. Yeah, we only have 2 turns left and 2 turns of electric terrain and sun. So we do have to be cautious of not running out of sunlight so Kratom can deal maximum damage. But here we can just protect and try to knock off into the Calyrax to be safe, but they read our protect. I guess next turn they could technically Incineroar takes that pretty well, but next turn we we guaranteed have to knock out at least one of them because they could launch a double Trick Room to reset their Trick Room turns. That's an advanced play. A lot of people don't see that play and will just launch attacks into us. But here we can just knock out the Porygon because this is the weaker target anyway. We do see what we have in the back. We do have lower defenses, so we do have to keep that in mind. It's probably safer to launch a Flare Blitz into there, just in case they have a Terra that resists fighting type moves. But we're probably alright. And they do recover with the Porygon, which is, I guess, annoying, but it's not really dealing. It's not holding up any pressure, and that's why we're not really targeting it. But we do tank that since we're both fire types. We do knock off the Calyrex, and we should knock it out with the close combat. But generally they have pretty weird items on this team since they do have Quick Claw Calyrex and the Electric Seed with the Miraidon. But yeah, we've just been ignoring the Porygon since it has 0 presence on the field. It's not really affecting us at all. But now we successfully got out of the Trick Room, so we should just be faster. But here we're not sure about how fast that Miraidon is going to be, so we do have to be careful. So it might seem dumb, but I am going to try to get the sun back up so the Fluttermane can guaranteed outspeed the Miraidon. Of course, I could just try to launch attacks into it, but I do want to guarantee the win. I could just play reckless and just launch attacks, but I'd rather play it safe. It's better to be safe than sorry, because we definitely could still lose here. You never know, because the Miraidon is a huge threat. I guess here we can launch in. We can probably launch into Lunala because it probably won't die to anything that'll be on the field. But we do close combat the Porygon. I guess it was kind of a misplay because we probably could have just. We definitely could have lost here if they launched their attack into the Koraidon, but I guess they read us to protect. But we do end up knocking out the Porygon here. But as you can see, there's still speed ties involved since their Miraidon did go before our Koraidon. We launch in Fluttermane. We do send out Fluttermane because it's safer. We can just protect with Fluttermane. And then with Koraidon, we can just switch out Koraidon into the Lunala because the Lunala won't die anyway since it does still have Shadow Shield active. And after that, we can just launch a Moonblast into them right on in a close combat afterwards. You can probably just skip a little bit. They probably launch their attack into the Flutter Mane. I mean, Volt Switch would have killed the Flutter Mane, but it's not their optimal move. It should have been Electro Drift, just in case anything else switches in from the back. But yeah. Here we can just send in the Koraidon and launch Moonblast into the Miraidon, and we should be able to knock out. Our Koraidon's coming in because we switched out the Lunala. And we set up the Sun, and we guarantee get a speed boost with the Flutter Mane, thanks to Photosynthesis. And we should be able to knock out the Miraidon. I guess I did draw it out more than I should have, but either way, it's safer. We guaranteed the win, and we defeat Sir Smokey. Here we have Blick. He doesn't have any really common Pokemon. I guess the only one that's common is the Miraidon, the Kyogre, and I guess semi-common could be the Mienshao, but Dragonite, Gastrodon, and especially Blastoise aren't really common. I guess he just has the Gastrodon for Kyogres, since he can wall out any Kyogres. The Raging Bolt does seem pretty good into their team, since it can threaten electric type damage into, or dragon type damage into dragon and electric type damage. Obviously electric for the Kyogre and the Blastoise. And I guess dragon type for the Miraidon. And here it's not really like optimal to bring in Incineroar, because as you can see, they don't really have any physical attackers. The only physical attackers are Mienshao and the Dragonite. And those Pokemon generally have the inner focus ability, so they won't be affected by Fake Out from Incineroar or Intimidate. So Incineroar wouldn't really be doing much in this matchup anyway, and it's really weak to the Gastrodon, the Blastoise, and the Kyogre, and the Mienshao. So the only Pokemon it would really be able to like do something against would be the Dragonite and maybe the Miraidon, but the Miraidon could knock it out pretty easily. So it's just safer to bring in the Raging Bolt. So they do launch in Mienshao and Dragonite. I guess they thought we were going to send an Incineroar in the front. But here we do threaten a lot, because the Dragonite is super weak to Fairy type moves from the Flutter Mane, and the Koraidon sets up the Sun. So either way, we're going to outspeed. Here we can just hit him with the Double Protect if we want to. It's pretty safe since we don't have to worry about Fake Out from the Mienshao. But generally we would want to protect with the Koraidon. They're probably gonna have Focus Sash on the Mienshao anyway. So it'd be able to survive one hit, so it's probably not worth it to launch it Flare Blitz with the Koraidon. I could launch a Moonblast or an Icy Wind to slow them down, but they do have Wide Guard, and they could just try to knock out my Flutter Mane right off the bat. But it's just the safest play just to double protect, since they do have an active Fake Out, and we don't want them to read or protect into the Koraidon and just launch attacks into the Flutter Mane. But here they do set up a Tailwind, so they are fast. They will guaranteed be faster than Koraidon probably, but they're not. They're probably not faster than. They probably will be faster than Fluttermane actually, because they are pretty speedy. Unless they don't have much investment into their Dragonite. But here, what I'm thinking is they can easily launch a close combat. They can launch. What they're threatening is here. I guess is pretty good to show you. They can launch fighting type move into Koraidon because fighting type moves don't affect Fluttermane. And they could also launch an extreme speed into Koraidon to guarantee more damage. But here I'm thinking that if they want to do that, I can just send in Lunala, and Lunala is immune to both of those moves. So it would be a wasted turn for them and a wasted turn of Trick Room. That's a pretty heavy read, but it could pay off. Let's see what they go for. I do launch a Moonblast into the Dragonite, since it is a Dragon type. And they launch Extreme Speed into Koraidon, and they also use... I think they also use a Close Combat into Koraidon, but as you can see, both attacks fail because Lunala is a Ghost type. I got through one turn without taking any damage from them. So any turn with no damage is a good turn. And here they're both pretty weak to Fairy type moves, so it'd be pretty easy to launch Moonblasts with both Pokemon. We're still not sure if their Dragonite is faster or slower than Fluttermane, since they did use Extreme Speed and that has +2 priority. Let's see what they go for. They do switch out their Mienshao. They're probably thinking that they want to preserve the Fake Out. But in comes Kyogre, and we don't have the Speed Boost anymore because they did get rid of our Sunlight. But somehow we're still faster than Dragonite and Tailwind, so they're a really slow Dragonite. And we do launch a Moonblast. We could get a special attack drop, but we're not really going for it. If we don't get it, it's fine. Obviously, we didn't get it, but it would have been nice to get. And here comes Miraidon. Now it's a speed tie between my... It can be a speed tie depending on how fast they are with their Miraidon. And they do have Tailwind, so they'd probably be faster than us. So we can probably just double protect and get rid of their Tailwind. And we're just going to be faster than them at that point. But so far, we have not taken a single bit of damage on our team. And we're already a couple turns in, so far we're doing good. They do Terrastalize. And it's the Miraidon into Electric, so they don't take much damage from any Fairy type moves. But we do hit him with the double protect. They try to Volt Switch so they can get their Mienshao back out on the field. And Ice Beam into Fluttermane. Just splitting their target, just to guarantee they can get some damage off, but we didn't allow any of that. And now Tailwind is gone, so now it is an official speed tie, possibly between their Miraidon and Fluttermane. Unless we send out Koraidon, we can, by setting up the sun, we can lessen how much damage the Kyogre can do, and we're also guaranteeing that we outspeed with our Fluttermane. Yeah, but Koraidon's pretty safe here. Even if we do get knocked out with our Koraidon, it should be okay. We can also just Icy Wind to make sure that we're faster in later turns. But here we're just launching a simple Moonblast just to get damage off. Yeah, Koraidon's in, sets up the sun. Kyogre deals less damage. Fluttermane gets a speed boost. We do outspeed with Fluttermane. And it gets a special attack drop, so it should deal even less damage. They do Volt Switch into the Koraidon, but since it's a Dragon type, it does resist any electric type moves. They should send out the Mienshao. An Ice Beam into Koraidon isn't ideal, but it's okay because we don't get knocked out. A freeze would suck, but yeah. We could launch in Raging Bolt since they aren't really affecting us with too much. And they do have an active Fake Out. But here we can launch a Moonblast into the Mienshao because it is super effective into it. But it's probably holding the Focus Sash, so it would be able to survive just to break the Focus Sash, or threaten the Miraidon if it does try to come back in. But probably not because it does have an active Fake Out. And they probably want to use it since they are pretty far behind. We still have all 4 Pokemon. They've already lost their Dragonite. So we send in Raging Bolt. They do Fake Out with the Raging Bolt into the Koraidon slot. Do launch a Moonblast, and they do have Focus Sash confirmed. They might have thought we would protect, but I guess they didn't read the protect. They just went for the Ice Beam into the Raging Bolt, but the Raging Bolt is fine. It's pretty bulky. Here we can Thunderclap we can pin the Kyogre with Thunderclap. So if it doesn't attack, Thunderclap will fail, or if they switch out, Thunderclap will fail, but Thunderclap is heavy damage into the Kyogre anyway, so it should want to avoid us. And we can knock out Mienshao with Moonblast anyway. Obviously Thunderclap fails since Kyogre did switch out, but Mienshao gets knocked out, so now it's just 2 versus 4, and it's severely in our favor. Kyogre does get sent out, so it technically is a speed tie between Fluttermane and the Miraidon, since we don't have the speed boost anymore because the sun isn't active anymore. But we do get a special attack boost from the booster energy with the Raging Bolt, so it doesn't matter if the sun is gone on the Raging Bolt's end. So here we can still pin the Kyogre with Thunderclap, since they have already used Terrestrialization on Miraidon, so they can't change their typing. I could switch out, but I guess I already have a nice pin anyway. But I guess I could just switch out into Koraidon and sacrifice it, so I could just get the speed boost on Fluttermane. But it doesn't really matter because I already have... I still have Focus Sash active, so I should be able to survive any of their attacks. And here, I could launch Moonblast into Miraidon. It wouldn't knock out, but I do still have Terrestrialization. So if I were to Terra Fairy with Fluttermane, I would be able to knock out the Miraidon based on how much damage I did last time. And here they do avoid the Thunderclap by using Aqua Ring to be able to heal gradually with their Kyogre, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's still pinned, so it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't be able to. I could just go for Thunderbolt, but Thunderclap is just safer because I will be able to be faster than them. And here I can take out their water by launching in Koraidon and most likely sacrificing it to the Miraidon. And by doing this, I'm guaranteed faster with Flutter Mane when it comes back in because of the speed boost, and I keep the Focus Sash intact. So I'm doing two things by sending Koraidon. Lessening how much damage Kyogre can do, and giving the speed boost guaranteed to the Flutter Mane. Koraidon does get knocked down. Obviously, Thunderclap did fail into the Kyogre, but that's fine. It's still pinned. It doesn't really matter to me. They do use Aqua Ring again, but it should fail since they can only have one Aqua Ring active. So they are healing, but I still don't care about their healing. I should be fine. And Flutter Mane comes back out. Flutter Mane is guaranteed faster than Miraidon, thanks to the speed boost from Photosynthesis, thanks to the Koraidon's Sun. Here I can still launch Thunderclap into Kyogre. And here I can just Terastallize and Moonblast into Miraidon to guaranteed knock it out. There's Terra Fairy, just to boost how much damage I can do. Thunderclap fails again. I mean, it doesn't matter to me if the Kyogre keeps using Aqua Ring, because either way, I'm still. They're not being offensive. They're not threatening anything into us, and that way we just knock out their Miraidon. And what else are they gonna do? They're not really providing any help for their team. But with that, it should be over. I mean, what can they really do at this point? Here I can use Taunt just to stop them from using Aqua Ring and force them to use attacking moves, but they do just cancel the battle because they know it's over. Okay. I'm gonna use the restroom real quick. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Here we have an opponent that literally has no restricteds, no legendaries at all, but excuse me. Uh Sometimes these teams are pretty scary since you don't really know what they're bringing, and if they're confident to not bring any legendaries to a legendary format, sometimes they can be scary, sometimes they're just meme teams, but I guess we'll see. Here I'm just thinking about launching in setting in Fluttermane and Koraidon just to get the speed boost on Fluttermane. I don't think Amoonguss would be too useful here since they don't really have anything I need to put asleep, or they don't threaten much Trick Room either. And Raging Bolt is alright, but I feel like the Pokemon I'm picking are pretty good. Let's just skip forward to see what happens. There's our opponent, and they send in Fluttermane and Grimmsnarl. Here I guess they could have Fake Out on Grimmsnarl, but it's not guaranteed. It's probably just going to set up screens, and their Fluttermane is really big. Wow. Um, they do get a speed boost with their Fluttermane. Here I can Icy Wind and Terrifier Flame Charge into their Fluttermane, just in case their Focus Sash. But Icy Wind is pretty good just to slow them down. That way we outspeed them. Because right here it is a three-way. It should be actually since they do have two. Their Fluttermane also did get a speed boost, so it could be a speed type between my Fluttermane and their Fluttermane. So I can just try to Icy Wind just to lower their speed. And I could Terra Fire just to guarantee that I don't take much damage, and Flame Charge will guarantee that I become faster. What's interesting is that when Koraidon does get a speed boost, it is a speed type between our Fluttermane and our Koraidon. So it can become pretty dicey there by not knowing who will move first sometimes. But I do lower our special attack with Fluttermane by launching in their by launching Parting Shot into our Grimmsnarl. So we will be dealing less damage, but we weren't going for damage this turn, we're going for Icy Wind, so it shouldn't really matter. And what's interesting is their Cerulege does is pretty good into our Koraidon because they do wall Koraidon. They should have the ability that makes them immune to fire type moves, and they're a ghost type. So close combat fighting type moves can't hit Cerulege, and it's immune to our fire type moves. So it completely walls our Koraidon, which is interesting. But here we should knock out Fluttermane because we did outspeed and lowers our speed. So now our Koraidon should be faster. And Flame Charge boosted by Sun and Terra and Life Orb is pretty crazy. So Fluttermane isn't a bulky Pokemon, at least on the defensive side, so it does get knocked out. Do launch an Umbreon. I mean, Umbreon isn't really threatening much into us either, but we can launch an Incineroar to lower how much damage the Cerulege can do, and also threaten any fake outs if Cerulege does Terrasilize. And also it keeps our Fluttermane's Focus Sash intact, and resets its special attack stat that the Grimmsnarl did lower. And it's safe to just protect with Koraidon anyway, since we are trying to get Incineroar in. So Incineroar would be able to tank most of their attacks anyway, because it is really, really bulky. Obviously, Umbreon isn't affected by Intimidate, since it does have Inner Focus. But Cerulege isn't holding any item that prevents it from getting its attack stat lowered, but they do tear with Cerulege into the Fire type, just to be more offensive. But all Pokemon on our side won't really be taking much damage from um, any Fire type moves. They did launch a Shadow Sneak to do heavy damage to the Fluttermane, but obviously we switched it out anyway, so it shouldn't really matter. Now dealing even less damage. We can fake out into Ceruledge now since they did Terrestrialize, so it's not immune to fake out anymore since it's not a ghost type. But here we can flinch the Ceruledge and close combat into the Umbreon and just straight up knock it out. We do get our defenses lowered. And here's Grimmsnarl. It's probably safer to launch in Lunala just to keep the focus ash intact for the Flutter Mane. And do press Reflect with their Grimmsnarl, but Flare Blitz in Sun Life Orb Terra boosted should always knock out all Grimmsnarls. Guaranteed. Here we're probably going to take a lot of damage. And our defenses are lowered because of the close combat. So most attacks will be able to kill the Koraidon at this point since they do have a Terra boost, Life Orb boost, and a same type attack bonus with the Ceruledge. So Koraidon did its job. It doesn't matter if it fainted now. It just is doing its part, and another Pokemon can come back in now. But here it's pretty much over. I mean, they just have Ceruledge versus 3 other Pokemon. And their attack stat gets lowered again, so they're not threatening much into us anyway. Here we go for Fake Out. And Moongeist Beam. And based on how much damage that did, we should be able to tell that this Ceruledge is holding the Assault Vest since it has its special attack boosted. We can protect Lunala just to be safe. And knock off with Incineroar to get rid of the Assault Vest, and that way Lunala will be able to knock it out next turn. Yep, that confirms the Assault Vest. But we could tell based on how much damage the Lunala did to the Ceruledge. And we can Moongeist Beam. And I guess Parting Shot. Doesn't really matter what we do with Incineroar because it's already over. But they do cancel the battle, and we win. The quality got really bad. But here, we're going against Miraidon and Ice Rider. They do have 2 forms of speed control with Tailwind with Whimsicott and Trick Room to be able to make slow Pokemon faster with Farigiraf, and they do have Armored Tail, so they would be able to like not be affected by Thunderclap or Fake Out priority moves basically. And here we can assume that it's Water Urshifu, but it could also be Dark Urshifu. We did go for a double restricted lead. And they send out their Whimsicott and the Miraidon. So they could use Tailwind to guaranteed be faster than us, and they could alternatively just launch attacks into Koraidon, since it is 4 times super weak to fairy type moves. But that's why we'll probably Terra with the Koraidon just to be safe. They could Terrastallize into the fairy type, so it'll resist what certain damage we do. But I guess we'll see what they do right here. But it is pretty safe to just Terrastallize with Koraidon. And do put a light screen up just to be able to lessen how much damage you do with the Lunala. But as you can see, it probably has no bulk at all because we do knock out cleanly with the close combat into the Miraidon. We shouldn't deal much damage with the Moongeist Beam since they did get a light screen up. And here they're in a pretty bad spot because they do have their Ice Rider. But Ice Rider might be really affected by what we can do. But they do launch out their Ice Rider. I mean, it's weak to fire type moves and to ghost type moves from the Lunala. So I could probably just launch a Flare Blitz or a I guess you could launch close combat if you want to read the Terra. But it could be something that resists fighting type moves, so maybe it's not too safe. I feel like Flare Blitz would probably be the best, but I think I do go for close combat. Just in case they Terra into like water or anything like that. But if they Terra into Fairy, they would be able to resist the move. So Flare Blitz would be better if they do turn into a Fairy type. But Moongeist Beam just in case they don't Terrestrialize. But as you can see, they're Terrestrializing now. Most likely they're Ice Rider. Yes. And it is Fairy, so close combat shouldn't do too much damage. And do Encore me into close combat, so either way I guess I didn't have a choice. So they do want me to do less damage into their Ice Rider, and they do tank it pretty well. But we do still have Shadow Shield up with our Lunala, so we should be able to tank any attack they launch at us. And even if it is a Glacial Lance, we would be alright. But as you can see there, the Leech Seed variant of the Calyrex, so they're just trying to heal off of our Pokemon and leftovers also, so they just get a lot of healing. But since we know they're leftovers, we can just send an Incineroar and intimidate it multiple times. It's not going to be dealing a lot of damage after a while, since we do have Incineroar. And either way, they can't really threaten much damage into Incineroar because it is a fire type move. It is a fire type, so it would resist any Moonblast from the Whimsicott, and ice type moves won't do super effective damage into the Incineroar. They do Endeavor into us, but that's fine. We still resist the ice type moves. And we do almost knock out the Flutter Mane. They do heal a little bit more. We could launch a Fake Out into the Whimsicott just to knock it out, but they could just switch it out. And then they'd be safe. And they do switch out the the Whimsicott. 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 And they send in probably their Incineroar? Yes. And Moongeist Beam gets a critical hit, so we do even more damage than we should have, which feels bad for them since they did read us on this turn, but they also got a critical hit, so I guess it's equal. Since we wouldn't have gotten knocked out by the Glacial Lance, but we did. But they should get an attack boost from that. We do launch in Koraidon again. Since both of these Pokemon are really threatening much damage into Koraidon. But we can launch Flare Blitz in close combat into Incineroar. And regardless of who they fake out, we're probably going to deal a lot of damage anyway. They protect. And unless they're really, really bulky, Incineroar, they should get knocked out by this. Yep. So now they only have their Ice Rider and their Whimsicott left. And Flare Blitz gets blocked by Protect. And the sun is gone. They do heal a little bit off the leftovers. Light Screen does disappear, but Light Screen doesn't matter to us since we aren't special attackers. It could later on matter on the Flutter Mane if we do get to a point where that matters. But here, since they just protected with their Ice Rider, it's pretty safe to just double target into it since the odds are they won't be able to get a double protect. Since it isn't guaranteed to get a protect right after. But yeah, double Flare Blitz into the Ice Rider is really safe. And does survive on one. They do Endeavor into Koraidon, but it doesn't matter. Since we do still have Flutter Mane in the back with the Focus Sash. They will get 2 attack boosts because the double knockout with the Ice Rider. That just proves that they do have speed investment with their Ice Rider because our Incineroar was slower. Let's just skip forward. The only thing we can do is launch in Flutter Mane, so it shouldn't really matter what we do here. But here we can just... We could Icy Wind to try to knock them both out, but it's not guaranteed that we'd be able to knock the Ice Rider out because of how bulky it might be. But here I'm just debating on which one to Moonblast. Because I guess either of them could protect, but we'll see. I just Moonblast into the Ice Rider. They try to set up a light screen to try to see if they can survive that, but Flutter Mane has insane special attacks, so there's no way it would be able to survive. And with that, I mean, we've already won. We still have Focus Sash, and Whimsicott is at such low health. They do cancel the battle because they know they've lost. Here we have a Sun team with Groudon. Venusaur would get double speed because if the Sun is up. Here it's kind of scary to launch an Incineroar because we could technically just send in Koraidon Incineroar and launch a Fake Out into the Venusaur to guaranteed knock it out with Flame Charge or Flare Blitz with Koraidon. But here it's kind of hard to bring in Incineroar because they do have Annihilate. Annihilate with the Defiant ability, it would get a attack boost because of the any drops that it has, but it would be a guaranteed drop with Intimidate. So it would usually get +2, but it'd be +1 because one drop does count, so it'd just be a one boost. But they do have a lot of physical attackers, so Intimidate is pretty good still because we do want to lower their attack stat. Only one Pokemon can hold the clear amulet, so we're pretty safe to bring in Incineroar regardless. But they do bring in Incineroar and Venusaur. So they do get a speed boost from our Koraidon. And I guess they were fishing for our Incineroar coming in, so they could get an attack boost. But here I can just Flame Charge into the Venusaur and probably taunt it so it can't use any sleep powders. Because we probably are faster with our Flutter Mane. Unless they were like a Choice Scarf Venusaur. I was thinking about using Icy Wind, but that would give the Annihilate an attack boost, and I don't want to do that since we are lowering its speed. So I can just taunt. And get a speed boost with Koraidon. Taunt prevents it from using anything like Protect or Sleep Powder. Annihilate protects, but we weren't targeting it anyway, so that's fine. So I guess Icy Wind would have been safe anyway, but it's just safer to just not do that. But it does get taunted, and it can't use Sleep Powder after the taunt. So we did read their Pokemon pretty well. I didn't really care what the Annihilate went for that turn, but them protecting doesn't hurt at all. So now we're in a really, really good position. They do send in Groudon. They do threaten Precipice Blades into us now, since we are weak to ground type moves now with Koraidon. But we could just launch a close combat into the Groudon unless they do tear into Ghost type. But we can just double target with close combat and maybe a Moonblast into the Groudon just to guarantee we kill it. Or a Moonblast into the Nihilate since it is a fighting type. And fighting type is weak to fairy type moves. So we can just split the targets just so we don't get hit by any protects. Or affected by any protects. But now they're going to use Terra. And they do Terra the Annihilate into normal. They thought we were going to launch a Ghost type move into there, but we don't have a Ghost type move on our Flutter Mane. So it's completely fine. We do launch a Moonblast, and we do half damage. We do sadly get a special attack drop, so that means they do get the 2x attack boost into their Annihilate. They launch Rage Fist, and it should knock out because they did get an attack boost and we did lower our defenses. So regardless, Koraidon did do its job well. It did get a knockout and did do good damage into Groudon. But Precipice Blade hits, but we do survive on 1 health, so it's fine. Here we can send in Lunala or Incineroar, but we probably shouldn't bring in Incineroar because it would give the Annihilate a another attack boost, so it would be a +3 Annihilate. I was probably doing a damage calculation at that point just to make sure I would be able to knock out the Groudon. But here I can probably just launch a Moongeist Beam into the Groudon and a Moonblast into the Annihilate. Based on how much damage the last Moonblast did, we should guaranteed knock out the Annihilate anyway. Here we knock out Annihilate. Their Terra is wasted, it's good. And Moongeist Beam should knock out the Groudon. Unless they had heavy special attack, special defense investment, and maybe an Assault Vest, but probably not. Based on, obviously, us knocking it out. And their last Pokemon is Koraidon. Since they already used Terra, we can already just launch Fairy type moves into it. Double Moonblast would be fine, but I guess Moongeist Beam and Moonblast would be fine too. But they do cancel the battle since they know it's over. But here's another double Sun team. But this one's a lot scarier because they do have Jump Bluff, and that's faster than the Venusaur from last time. So they could put us to sleep or set up Tailwind alternatively. And they could have Covert Cloak on that, so we wouldn't be able to stop their Jump Bluff with Incineroar. And they still have another Defiant Pokemon with King Gambit, so it's not safe to bring in Incineroar in the first place anyway. And they are, with the Cornerstone Ogerpon, they are threatening big damage into our Koraidon if I do Terra to Fire. But here I'm going for the same approach as last time, but it's definitely harder because of the Jump Bluff. Jump Bluff, unironically, is a big threat. Let's see what they go for. And yeah, Jump Bluff and Groudon. They guarantee to get the speed boost. Thanks to the sun, the chlorophyll. And here it's really tough. It's a tough position we're in. I could try to flame charge to try to become faster. I could try to taunt, but they're probably still faster than us, so it doesn't really matter. But just off the off chance that we are faster with the Flutter Mane, it would be good. You Terrastalize with the Groudon. Generally, Groudon is a physical attacker, but sadly, this one is a special attacker, and it's gonna deal overwhelming damage to the team. They did outspeed us with the Jump Bluff, so it's looking pretty over. It's not looking like we can win from here. Healer's gonna overwhelm us with damage with Eruption. Fire boosted, Sun boosted. Yeah. I mean, here we can't really survive with Koraidon or Flutter Mane. Obviously, Flutter Mane only has 1 health left. Even though we did get a speed boost with Koraidon, I mean, we're just as fast as the Flutter Mane. They're already outspeeding the Flutter Mane, and now they have Tailwind up, so it's not looking good for us. But I guess we could have done Fake Out into the Jump Bluff alternatively, since they aren't Cobra Cloak, since they are Focus Sash. So if we did know that they were the Eruption set with Groudon, we could have countered it with that. But sadly, we didn't know. But I guess that's why it's interesting how you can have crazy surprises with your teams in closed team sheet format, since you don't really know what they're running. Here I'm just in a pretty desperate position, so I do protect with Koraidon. And I guess I'm giving up the Flutter Mane. It does launch Eruption again. I mean, it shouldn't do anything else if we haven't even damaged it. Still at full power. I try to send in Incineroar. Hopefully Fake Out can do something, but it's not looking good for us at this point. Even if I do Terra, it doesn't really matter. They do withdraw the jump bluff, since they know it can be knocked out by any attack. And they do a double switch. They do launch in Koraidon and Porygon Z. We don't deal much damage into the Koraidon, even though we do have so many multipliers on this attack. As you can see, we just keep running out of health. We're not gonna have much health left by the end of this to deal with the rest of the Pokemon. They do only have one turn of Tailwind left, so we could just protect and launch in Lunala. They do Breaking Swipe with their Koraidon. So they're gonna double hit us. It does break Lunala's Shadow Shield. And Terra Blast doesn't affect Lunala, so I guess that was a decent turn. We could close combat the Porygon Z just to knock it out outright. But we could double target the Koraidon. I guess the only way we could win this is if we can get them out of position and the jump left coming back in without any sun in the field. We knock out the Porygon. I think their Koraidon should still be faster than our Lunala, so they do knock out Koraidon. And with that, we should run out of offense at that point. I don't think we'd be able to beat them at this point. Even if we were to like, yeah. Either way, the sun ran out, so when Groudon comes back in, the sun will be set up again. So they can obviously just eruption us again. Yeah. Groudon and Jumpluff on the field. We could try to launch a Fake Out into the Jumpluff, but they can just protect also. It, I think we try to go for a Trick Room, but it probably would have been safer just to Fake Out the Jumpluff and protect on the off chance that they throw and don't protect with Jumpluff. But they should protect with Jumpluff. Protect just to guarantee we don't take much damage from the eruption. That probably would have been safer. But I think at this point with the eruption, I think we were gonna lose regardless. Because it just deals too much damage. As you can see, it knocks out Lunala, and what's Incineroar gonna do? I could knock off, but Eruption should be able to knock us out, I think, at this range. Yeah. And with that, we lose. But here we have another Groudon team. You can tell that day they had a lot of Groudon on the field or on ladder. Here we go with the Classic 4. Fantastic 4. A fellow Koraidon enthusiast. The GOAT. But yeah, they go for Groudon Dusclops. We do get the speed boost, obviously with Flutter Mains, thanks to photosynthesis and the sun. But Koraidon should be faster than Groudon. But they do have Frisk on their Dusclops, so they do know which items we have. Here I guess the position is a little tricky since we don't want Dusclops to set up the Trick Room. We could taunt it, but it could also just attack us. But they do Protect. And Taunt comes out from the Flutter. And close combat gets blocked by Protect. And what Dusclops going for? It did try to Trick Room, so that does probably mean that the Groudon is pretty slow. Now they can only launch attacks with the Dusclops. But it's pretty risky to Terastallize with a Koraidon right now, since if they don't have any speed with the Groudon, they should be pretty bulky. So they might be able to survive the attacks from Groudon, and they wouldn't be able to launch any ground type moves into our Koraidon. But here we do get a critical hit with the Dusclops. Does get a special attack drop. Inflame Charge fails to knock out the Dusclops, since we didn't Terra. Precipice Blades avoids the Flutter Mane, so it's pretty good. We still have our Focus Sash intact, and we would have probably gotten knocked out if we did turn into a Fire type. But we do thankfully survive with our Flutter Mane, thanks to the miss with the Precipice Blades. If the Precipice Blades did hit our Flutter Mane, we probably would have lost right there, or at least lost the Flutter Mane, guaranteed. But here we can close combat into Groudon. And Moonblast the Dusclops. The Groudon does survive. Even if Groudon does go down here, it's okay, it did its job. Or both of us go down, it doesn't really matter. But I guess it probably would have been safer just to launch both attacks into Groudon, but it wouldn't guaranteed knockout, so it's okay. But we do probably lose both Pokemon here. But now we have Incineroar and Lunala. I guess it's not looking too good. They could definitely win this. And they do still have 3 Pokemon. I mean, we basically traded 2 Pokemon for most of Groudon and just a Dusclops, so they do still have a lot of threats against us. But their Ursaluna should be pretty slow since they did want to set up Trick Room, so it should entail that most of their Pokemon are pretty slow. But so is our Incineroar. Here we can fake out Ursaluna so it doesn't move, and we can just launch a Moongeist Beam or a Moonblast, most likely a Moongeist Beam, into their Groudon just to knock it out. But they do still have Protects. They Terra their Ursaluna to maximize how much damage they can do, either with Blood Moon or Hyper Voice. And normal type moves with Ursaluna are able to hit ghost type Pokemon since it does have the Mind's Eye, so it ignores the immunity to normal type moves. They did read that we would launch an attack into Groudon, but that's fine. This is still a pretty interesting position. Here we can Terrasilize. We probably definitely want to get rid of the Groudon because it is threatening heavy damage into both of us, especially the Incineroar since it is a fire type and ground types are super effective into fire types. And here we want to get rid of the item that the Ursaluna is holding by launching knockoff into it. And they are really slow because we're minimum speed Incineroar. They did try to get a Hyper Voice off with Throat Spray to get a special attack boost. Thanks to Shadow Shield, we do get have reduced damage into our Lunala. And there they have Chiempao. Most likely it has a Focus Sash, but that's a really offensive Pokemon, so it's pretty scary. But thanks to still having Terrestrialization, any Dark type moves that the Chiempao has will be resisted now thanks to Terrestrialization with Lunala. But here we can just Parting Shot into since we know we're faster with our Incineroar into the Ursaluna, we do know that we can guarantee get a special attack drop into it to lessen its damage even more. They do Sucker into our Lunala. It would have probably knocked out if it wasn't for Terrestrializing into a Fairy type. And it does have Focus Sash, so it should survive on 1 health at least. Then we do Parting Shot to lessen how much damage it can do. Here they go for a Blood Moon into our Lunala, but thanks to the special attack troop, we do survive with Lunala. And here we can Protect and knock off into Chiempao to guaranteed knock out the Chiempao, and that way we don't get knocked out by Sucker Punch, because at that range I'm sure Sucker Punch would knock out the Lunala. We Protect with Lunala just to not get hit by Sucker Punch. But they did Ice Shard instead, because they weren't sure if Sucker Punch would knock out. It probably would, based on how much damage the last one did. And they do Vacuum Wave into Incineroar. It is a fighting type move, but as you can see, it barely did any damage thanks to us lowering its special attack. And with this, we should have the Incineroar we should have the Ursaluna pretty pinned since we can launch a Moonblast and a Flare Blitz into Ursaluna. They vacuum wave into Lunala, trying to knock it out, but it wasn't enough. They rage quit, which is fine. We still get the win. And we do knock it out with just one hit with the Lunala. Here we do have a match against Miraidon and Calyrex Ice. It's pretty tricky since they can do Trick Room or Tailwind, so you don't know which speed you want. It's hard to know. But Volcarona is really scary because if it sets up Quiver Dances, it can be faster than Koraidon. And it's also pretty difficult to know what type of Urshifu it is. Most likely it'll be Water Urshifu since it is the most common one, but you never know. Dark type Urshifu is really strong. Here we go into Classic 4 again. They send out Fluttermane and Miraidon. It's not too surprising since it is their Classic lead against our Classic lead. They could for sure just do a Tailwind to guarantee to be faster than us. Our Sun did activate first, so we could possibly be faster. We only launch Flare Blitz if we know they're going to use Terra Fairy, because close combat can knock out guaranteed if they don't Terra Fairy. And launch an Icy Wind to be faster. I guess I'm trying to pin it. If it does Terra, it's gonna get knocked out by Flare Blitz, and if they don't Terrasilize, they're gonna be knocked out by the Moonblast. But here they do Terra. It's either gonna be electric or electric or fairy. But this time it's electric. They do Tailwind. They try to Draco into us, but they do miss, which is pretty lucky. It's a 90% accurate move. 10% of the time you will miss. But we are really lucky, because that would have definitely knocked out the Koraidon since we have 0 bulk. And we do end up knocking out their Miraidon. So that's a huge threat taken out, and their Terrestrialization taken out. So now they don't have any surprise factor with any Terrestrialization. And yeah, that's a huge lead at this point since they should have 2 supporting. Well, I guess they could have 2 offensive Pokemon in the back, but it should generally be 2 restricteds and 1 supporting. But here they do have Urshifu, but we should be pretty safe considering that they don't have, since they have water type moves, and we are in the sun. Unless they try to launch a close combat into Koraidon, I think it should be able to knock out. But Moonblast into that Pokemon should be okay since they can't Terrasilize. They Light Screen, so they take less damage from Moonblast. And we're still faster than the Urshifu, surprisingly, and we do critical hit them, so that's pretty crazy. We probably shouldn't have been able to knock out I mean, it is super effective, but we probably shouldn't have been able to knock out because of the Light Screen. And it's surprising that they aren't. Ooh, Focus Sash. since they're focus sash on the flutter on the Whimsicott, which is generally covert cloak or focus sash. So I guess that's just how it happens. Yeah, I mean I don't blame them for doing that, but I probably would have played it out. But I guess it is understandable that they want to leave after that. It's pretty bad. Here we should almost be done, but I'm gonna go to the restroom one more time. I'll be back. All right, I'm back. We should be done soon. I mean, there's not much time left in the video anyway. All right, let's see. Here we do have Shadow Rider Koraidon. It's pretty interesting because Wheezing takes away all abilities thanks to its ability. Um, but Calyrex doesn't get affected by that for some reason. But generally, Koraidon will have the ability shield item, so its Sun still gets set up since ability shield does block all abilities. So we'll see how this goes. This can be a pretty tricky matchup, especially because the Wheezing does stop our Shadow Shield from working, so we would take full damage. We won't get an attack boost. We won't get a speed boost. We can't intimidate. We can't regenerate, and we can't get a special attack boost with Raging Bolt. So we'll just see what they go with. I guess we can get into it. And they send in Wheezing and Brute Bonnet. So there are no abilities on the field, but generally we are faster than both of these Pokemon. I do want to get rid of the Brute Bonnet because I don't want it putting my Pokemon to sleep. But getting rid of Wheezing early is still pretty good too, since we do want our abilities. And it'd be good to get a speed boost on Koraidon to be able to outspeed the Shadow Rider that they will have in the back. Here I could just... Here I could taunt the Brute Bonnet to make sure it can't put us to sleep, but I guess trying to launch a Moonblast into it is still good anyway. Just try to knock it out if they don't Terrasilize. Terra with Brute Bonnet will generally be water to be able to resist fire type moves. For example, like the Koraidon's attacks that I'm about to send into it. But we'll see what they do in response. And there is a Terra most likely into the Brute Bonnet since I am threatening a super effective attack with Fairy and with Fire. But yeah, it is a water type. They protect with Weezing just to keep themselves safe. But luckily we're onto that into that. And we barely deal any damage into Brute Bonnet since it does get a... Since it is really bulky, to be honest, and it does have Rocky Helmet, so we do even more damage into ourselves. We do launch Moonblast into Brute Bonnet. It is good damage, but luckily they put the Fluttermane to sleep instead of the Koraidon. But here they could definitely protect with Brute Bonnet, so we are going to try to, like... We do use the move Protect instead of any attacking moves while the Fluttermane is asleep, because if they do Sucker Punch with the Brute Bonnet, it would go first and break our Focus Sash, even though we are asleep. Close combat into the Brute Bonnet, and it does get the knockout. Our defenses are lowered, but hopefully the Brute Bonnet... Well, the Brute Bonnet's dead. I meant the Weezing doesn't attack into the Koraidon. But I guess it'd be better if they launch attacks into Koraidon than Fluttermane, because we would keep our Focus Sash intact. But they do break our Focus Sash with the Fluttermane. They do send in Calyrex. But we are faster than Calyrex at this point with Koraidon. But they could just bait us into attacking with Calyrex into their Protect. But we can easily just launch in Incineroar since it would resist any of their attacks, especially with the Astral Barrages from... It would be immune to Psychic from Calyrex since it is a Dark type, and it would resist Astral Barrage thanks to it being a Dark type. But here we can just Fake Out next turn. But as you can see, we barely take any damage with Incineroar. But they do Strange Steam into us again. Again, Flame Charge into Calyrex, and I can knock off into Calyrex. And it does do a lot less damage since we aren't in the sun. So we could have launched our Flare Blitz, knowing that we're still going to get knocked out with the Koraidon just to maximize how much damage we can do. But it's okay, we did spend our Koraidon pretty well. And do get a special attack boost since their ability is not blocked. And here, if we did get confused by the Strange Steam, so if we do hit ourselves in confusion, it can be really bad and we could lose the match. But thankfully we don't, and we knock off the Calyrex and knock it out. Here we've just been ignoring the Weezing completely because it's not really threatening much into us. Lunala's Shadow Shield isn't active this turn. If we do launch Lunala in, and we do. And they send in their Koraidon. And here I'm pretty sure I do forget that I've been ignoring the Weezing for so long that I do forget that abilities are inactive. Especially the Incineroars. So I do Protect and launch in Fluttermane. I'm pretty sure the idea is to get Intimidate down on Koraidon since I know it's holding the ability shield. but I was being a silly goose, I guess, because I did forget that they are blocking Intimidate with the Wheezing. So there's no point in doing that. But I guess it's okay since they do protect with the Koraidon anyway, and we do protect with our Lunala. So the only way they'd be able to do damage is if they launch Strange Steam into the further main, and they do. But here we can Moonblast into Koraidon since they did just protect, and we can try to get a protect off with our Flutter Mane, but we don't. Silly me, sends in Incineroar even though we can't intimidate them. And do Flare Blitz into the Lunala. It did do a lot of damage thanks to Sun. But we do get a Moonblast into Koraidon and knock it out. Get a Strange Steam into Incineroar to knock it out. And they do have full health on their Weezing, so we could still definitely lose this. Here I was probably doing damage calculations. We can just skip a little forward just to see what happens. It's probably just optimal to launch an attack with the Lunala and the Flutter Mane. It's probably just better to launch Moonblast just to not risk the miss. But Flutter Mane does wake up. Deals okay damage with the Moonblast. But that should be in range to another Moonblast. But they do go for our Flutter Mane not waking up and trying to knock out the Lunala. But since they both survive, we're done. We win this, guaranteed. Yeah. But yeah, that was the Koraidon team that I did. And yeah. I might do more of these streams just to like try to teach you guys more about Pokemon. I think the next one would be, let me see. It would probably be a video on let's see, we did this. Yeah, it would be a video for this team, probably the next stream, but we'll see. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I guess that's it. Goodbye.